some of those stories. And now we have this year's keynote speaker, Professor Beena Sarwar. Professor Beena Sarwar is a multimedia journalist and documentary filmmaker from Pakistan who focuses on human rights, media, and peace. With an undergraduate degree in studio art and English from Brown University, where she was an international student, she initially actually wanted to be a painter. However, she got into journalism, where words became her art. Since the 1990s, her reports and commentary have appeared in media outlets across the globe. She has published essays in several nonfiction anthologies and is working on a book on the struggle for democratic spaces in Pakistan. She is the editor of Aman Ki Asha, Hope for Peace, a platform launched jointly by the two largest media groups of Pakistan and India, respectively. She also leads the South Asia Peace Action Network, an intergenerational, cross-regional, and cross-diasporic coalition of individuals and organizations launched in 2021. Moreover, she is actually not new to Harvard. She was an International Nieman Fellow at Harvard University in 2006 and a Fellow at the Carr Center for Human Rights Policy at the Harvard Kennedy School in 2007. Please welcome to the podium an artist and a journalist, Professor Beena Sarwar.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Colin, for that very generous introduction. Thank you all for being here, all the students who made this possible. I'm just so deeply honored to be here at the very first AAPI graduation. Thank you, guys. And I was here a little earlier because I was asked to come earlier, and I was talking to some of the students who made this possible. And it was so exciting to learn that it was the power of collaboration that made this possible. Networking, collaboration, and all of that. And I will talk a little bit about that as well. So I'm very, very grateful to my comrades at BSAC, the Boston South Asia Coalition, for entrusting me to speak on their behalf. I also represent, as Colin said, the South Asia Peace Action Network, or SAPAN, as we call it, which we launched in March last year at the height of the pandemic. And the past 2.5 years have been challenging for all of us. I think everybody here has gone through their set of challenges. We've lost loved ones. We've experienced isolation and faced other difficulties. And then there's the other pandemics. Domestic violence has increased. Racially motivated violence has increased. There's a sharp rise in incidents targeting the Asian American Pacific Islander communities. If you go to the stop aapihate.org site, it's actually stunning to see the percentage in rise of attacks on members of this community. And women of color, as everybody here knows, are even more vulnerable. And none of these pandemics are over. And it can feel overwhelming. And Colin already did this, but I'm going to do it again. That let's take a moment of gratitude for being here, for being alive, for being together, all of you. So take in this beautiful moment, smile at your neighbors, and just let's breathe, just for 1 minute, or not even for a minute, but. Thank you. Again, I'm extremely moved to be here at the very first AAPI and APIDA, including the Desi Americans, which Desi, for those who don't know, means South Asian here. I wanted to share how I've coped over the last couple of years. I went back to yoga and walking, and then I also took up Tai Chi. How many people here practice Tai Chi? Yay! So Tai Chi is something that I never knew about growing up in Pakistan, although it's an ancient art that comes from China, which Pakistan shares a little tiny border with up in the northwest. So, everything is connected. So in Tai Chi, and I'm totally new at this, but it just resonated with me so much with my work as a journalist and activist and now as a journalism teacher. So I wanted to share some of that with you. So in Tai Chi, we look into the eyes of an imaginary opponent or we play with a partner who's about our height, our eye level. For me, it suddenly struck me that when I do this, it's a way of confronting my own inner demons, a way of competing with my own best self. The other thing about Tai Chi is that it's a martial art, but it's an internal martial art. It teaches you never to be the aggressor. So to yield and be flexible is part of the ethos of Tai Chi, while holding on to your core, being firmly rooted, and keep holding, having your boundaries. So I was so excited to find these lessons resonate and how they can help in my work and life and everything. The other thing I wanted to say was that whatever you take from my words today, it's not what I am imparting to you, but what you take from it that will stay with you. And this is the core of learner-centered teaching, something that I learned from my mother, Aliya Sarwar, who's a language teaching specialist and teacher trainer. And I'm very honored and proud to have her in the audience here. And I'd like to acknowledge her. At 83, she's still here, addressing seminars, editing journals, she's standing up there, editing journal articles, walking 10,000 steps a day, and getting up like that as if, as if she's 60 years old. So touch wood. Thank you, Ammi. And the lesson I get from that is to never stop learning, to keep taking the steps. 10,000 she does a day. I don't. The other thing I want to say is that I want to make a confession. I want to confess that I'm an addict. I'm addicted to journalism, to the power of storytelling, to the questions why and how, which are the two most crucial questions in journalism. To understand why people engage in violence, whether as individuals or in gangs and militias, and how can we prevent it? We've all dealt with it in some way or the other. To understand that, we have to step out of ourselves and to not react. That's really hard to do. It's hard to feel any kind of compassion or empathy to somebody who has hurt us, hurt our community, someone who's attacking us. And it's hard not to fight back, okay? And to not take it personally. But it's only when we step back, when we take that moment to breathe and step back and take the long view. So we're looking directly in front of us, but we're also taking the long view. And when we do that, we see that violence is connected. It's about power. It's not ostensibly about race or religion or caste, but at the root of it is fear. The people perpetuating that violence are scared people, and they don't have the tools to express themselves in words. The systemic injustice and violence in the United States, I believe, stems from the same place as caste or class discrimination in South Asia, or the trampling of women's rights in Afghanistan. Some examples, and I'm sure all of you can think of many others. A man who voted for Obama in one election, voted for Trump in the next, because the idea of LGBTQ rights being legalized was too much for him. It was something his value system felt threatened. A teenager attacking an elderly Asian woman on a subway is scared that she's going to infect him. Fear. A woman in Pakistan accusing another one of blasphemy, which can lead to somebody being killed because the other person offered her a glass of water in the same cup that she drank from, and that transgressed a caste line that a few years ago would have been unthinkable. So the fear of the caste barriers being overrun are behind some of this violence as well. And like I said, all of you know such examples. Fear has no logic. It can't be used to justify violence. There's no way I'm justifying any kind of violence. But we know that arguing and censorship doesn't change minds. So what can we do, right? So we can't control how other people think or behave. We can only be responsible for ourselves, for our own words and actions, and how we respond to situations. So to not react, but to respond. And then the personal is political. How we behave at the personal level impacts our professional and political behavior. So to set aside our own pain and hold on to ourselves to calmly hear out someone whose views we disagree with, who has hurt us or our community, to remember that we are all part of a larger humanity, which does not mean to accept violence or injustice or inequality, but to listen. So this is an exercise I have my journalism students do, active listening. You listen to somebody for 5 minutes. 5 minutes can be a long time if you just have to listen and do nothing. But this is something that journalists have to do. And journalists are also activists. I've lived and fought against 2 military dictators in Pakistan. And journalists in the US now are starting to understand that journalism is activism. We can't be objective, we can be fair, okay? Because we choose, at the end of the day, what stories to tell, who to represent, who to talk to, what to leave in, what to leave out. And it's when we stop being good professionals, when journalists stop following these journalistic ethics, I think that is one thing that opens the doors for polarization and for violence being triggered. It's also, active listening is also a good life practice. So the wisdom to know when to act and when to listen and when to just listen, that comes from meditative practices like Tai Chi, or for some people it can be prayer, for some people it can be any other kind of meditation, but to be still and to listen. Tai Chi also teaches us to yield, as I said before. Islam, the religion that I was born into, means submission. It teaches that the greater jihad, the greater war, is the struggle within, to conquer your own worst self, to fight your own inner demons, not physical violence. And you all know the mantra, be the change. So this is the essence of that, right? Be the change. So it requires humility, and it requires courage to look inwards and not to blame somebody else for whatever they have done, to take the long view. Sorry. I want to just quote something that my Tai Chi teacher, she's from Balochistan, which is an arid province in Pakistan. It's a troubled province. There's a lot of fighting going on there. She's in New Jersey now. And I had known her many, many years ago in Pakistan. We were on the same Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. And at that time, we were going through really challenging times. Not too different from what we are seeing now, but also very, very different. And at that time, she said to me, in Urdu, she said, it's hard to translate, but some of you will understand. She said, "Behta wa pani apni jagah bana leta hai." Flowing water makes its own path. So when flowing water encounters an obstacle, it doesn't go crashing unless it's like right up in the mountains. It flows around those obstacles. And you know, so many of you here are from the ed school. And we know that language, that knowledge is power, right? So Tai Chi teaches that about knowledge over power. So there's a little story that I'll just tell you about one of Aliya's students, a Tai Chi a teacher in an inner city school in New Jersey, who had a lot of bullies in school. There were a lot of bullies, and she didn't know what to do. She was scared. Some of these 8th graders were much bigger than she was. She didn't know how to handle it. So she and Aliya talked about it, and they talked about the Tai Chi salute. And one day this teacher went up to the biggest bully and she said that, I've seen you fight and it's very impressive. You have a lot of physical power. But more impressive is the Tai Chi salute, is knowledge over power, knowledge, the palm over the closed fist. That is more impressive. So the student shared this with his friends, and they began using it. So if someone was coming at them aggressively, they would hold their ground and they would do this, and then they started sharing learning instead of fighting. And that changed the culture of that inner city school, which I thought was such a powerful story. And it's really important that we are making progress in so many ways, but we react to the bad news because we're hardwired that way, human beings, and journalists do that. We report about the bad news. We don't report about the process. And because the process doesn't make news, right? This is part of a process. It's also an event, this event that you've organized, but it's part of a long process. How long did it take you to put this together? It was a long process. That didn't make the news. The event makes the news. So I'll just close with just a few points. One is, as we've seen here, connections and collaborations are powerful. But we are all in this together, and together we are stronger. We can work together better when we let go of ego, when we practice humility, and when we feel the pain and release the hurt. Secondly, we talk about inclusivity. Let's practice it. Let's talk to those we disagree with. In these polarized times, we need dialogue and bridge building more than ever, right? So how do we open the doors to dialogue? Talk to the bullies. Find a minimum common agenda. Then, thirdly, we know that the blame game does not help. So let's not play it. It was his fault. He did this. She did that. Let's not generalize. Let's use our words to be observational and not judgmental. Let's focus on issues, not personalities and individuals. Then fourthly, I want to say that everything is connected and everything is political. We need to take that long view and we need to engage strategically. Keep our eye on the bigger picture, which is very, very difficult to do in this world of social media. Somebody says something, you feel like you have to react, and if you don't react, your friends are going to call you out, and there'll be this cancel culture and this outrage culture. So how do you hold on to yourself and not react if you come across something that triggers you? And finally, the process, as I said, is as important as the goal, which we may never achieve that goal, but we have to keep taking the steps because there are no shortcuts to peace, to social justice, to democracy, or healthy relationships. So regardless of the challenges, we need to keep taking those steps. All of this takes practice. So we need to practice that calm, that patience, that humility. And if my daughter was here just now, she'd be like, ha, 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 because she knows that I'm one of the most impatient people around. But I have to keep working on it, right? And because it's easier said than done. So in closing, I invite you to use your words, to be observational, not judgmental, to use technology, but also use your hearts, to be a pebble in a pond, to spread ripples of knowledge, of compassion, of love and understanding. And I wish you all luck as you move into the next phase of your lives, all of you. I know that each of you will do amazing things in the world to change the world. And you're already doing that by being present here today for this APID Desi ceremony. Say it, what is it? APIDA. Yeah, the other thing is this, that I make mistakes like that all the time, so sorry for that. But thank you all again, and congratulations. Thank you.